everyone, it's Destiny, and today we're going to be going over the best Evernight teams in Honkai Star Rail. And before we get into today's video, I would love to know if you are considering pulling for Evernight or just in general the 3.6 characters, which one you are just the most excited for. Lastly, if you do enjoy videos like these, do make sure to subscribe to see more content from me, leave a like to support the video, and now let's get straight into it. Before we discuss the best Evernight teams, I thought we could just do a brief overview of Evernight's kit. Which Evernight is an Ice Remembrance character who can buff fellow memosprites on the team, which Evernight has her own memosprite, which is Evey, and Evernight can also take advantage of a stack mechanic referred to as Memoria, which this is going to be important for her memosprite's damage output. When it comes to Evernight's skill, she'll consume her current HP to summon Evey if Evey isn't already on the field, and also increase the crit damage of all ally memosprites by an amount equal to 24% of Evernight's crit damage for 2 turns. This duration will decrease by 1 at the start of Evernight's turn, and if Evey is already on the field when you are using Evernight's skill, then you will restore HP for Evey. For Evernight's ultimate, if you don't have Evey on the field, this will also summon Evey, and you'll also be able to deal damage onto all enemies, and Evernight will enter the Darkest Riddle state. During this state, the damage received by all enemies will increase by 30%, which is a vulnerability debuff. A 30% vulnerability debuff can be seen as a 1.3 times damage increase for the team. The damage dealt by Evernight and her memosprite Evey will also increase by 60% as well, and they'll also be immune to crowd control debuffs, and you will gain 2 Darkest Riddle charges. And these charges are based on Evey using its attack Dream Dissolve is due, which the way to use this attack would be if you have 16 or more Memoria. Evey will be able to advance itself forward, and then this attack will cause Evey to explode and disappear from the field. When Evey does disappear from the field, Evernight will also gain a speed buff. Now, when it comes to ways to get Memoria, whenever Evernight or an ally memosprite uses an ability, Evernight will be able to gain 1 Memoria. Each time Evernight or Evey lose HP, their crit damage will increase, but you will also be able to get Memoria from this. Which in the case of this, if you do have Hyacine's signature light cone, Hyacine can nicely assist with getting more Memoria for Evernight. When you use Evernight's skill, you'll be able to get Memoria there as well. And then during the Darkest Riddle state, you'll gain 12 additional Memoria through the skill as well. And the more Memoria stacks, the better, as this will improve Evey's damage output. So during some of my showcases, I was able to get, for example, 40 plus Memoria. This will be able to deal far more damage than, for example, if you only had 16 stacks of Memoria. Another perk worth mentioning is that through Evernight's Trace, Kindle the More and Drop the Rain, when there are 1, 2, 3, 4 or more Remembrance characters in the team, while Evernight's skill persists, you will get an additional increase for memosprite's crit damage by 5% for 1 Remembrance character, 15% for 2, 50% for 3 Remembrance characters, and lastly 65% crit damage increase for 4 Remembrance characters. So Evernight's going to be able to nicely increase the crit damage of allies on the team through her kit. With the brief overview aside, let's now get into teams. So I thought we can actually start off with Castorice and Evernight. And when it comes to the other team members on the team, for your 3rd slot, you can pick between Tribby, you could pick Cypher, you could pick Remembrance Trailblazer, and so on. There's multiple options you could pick for the 3rd slot. If you do want to use a full Remembrance team though, I would recommend Remembrance Trailblazer. As for your last slot, you'll be looking at Hyacine, Gallagher. You can also consider Luocha, that's a fine option as well. In the case of Hyacine, if you do have her signature light cone, even better, as this will result in more new bud generation for Castorice herself, and then also more Memoria for Evernight. So that signature light cone will be pretty useful in that case. But if you don't have it, Hyacine still will be an excellent option for Castorice and Evernight. So in the case of Castorice, what she's going to be able to provide Evernight is, of course, being able to assist with getting more Memoria. It's due to the fact that Castorice can reduce allies' HP, which, as we mentioned earlier with the brief kit overview, when Evernight or Evey lose their HP, they will be able to gain Memoria. So Castorice being able to drain allies' HP will be very useful for getting more Memoria for Evernight. And then on Evernight's end, she's going to be able to assist with getting more new bud for Castorice, You're going to be summoning Evey frequently. You're going to be restoring Evey's HP. So there's going to be numerous ways of HP manipulation, if you will, that will be able to benefit Castorice for new bud generation. And then I did mention, of course, the Darkest Riddle state, that vulnerability debuff being inflicted onto all enemies. The entire team can take advantage of this to further improve their damage output. So Castorice herself will be able to nicely take advantage of this just to deal more damage onto enemies. And overall, these two will have a pretty nice synergy with one another when it comes to getting more Memoria, when it comes to getting more new bud for Castorice, and so on. I was able to test them out together and they were able to get a very, very nice clear and end game. But for those that may not have Castorice or even may want to use Hypercarry Evernight, that is also a very powerful option. Which, to be honest, you would essentially be taking Castorice's team. So in this scenario, I would say if you do have Castorice and Evernight, I would lean more towards using them together because you already have Castorice, and Evernight works very nicely with essentially the same supports as Castorice. Here's one team example. We have Evernight, Remembrance Trailblazer, Kirby, and then Hyacine or Gallagher. Of course, Luocha can work here as well. And Evernight will be able to provide more crit damage based on how many Remembrance characters you have on the team. So in this case, we would technically have 3. We have Evernight herself, we have Remembrance Trailblazer, and then we have Hyacine. And in the case of Remembrance Trailblazer, something I really like to do with them in particular is try to time it where, let's say Evernight uses her skill and I'm able to get 100% charge with Mem. This is a very nice scenario, as now you can advance forward Evernight once again before Evey actually does the explosion attack. And what this allows you to do is get more Memoria, as you can now use Evernight's skill once again. I also forgot to mention this, but Evernight also does not consume skill points. So what this actually allows you to do is use more of your skills with your other characters on the team. And on top of that, whenever Evey uses Dream Dissolving is Due, which is the explosion attack, you'll also recover 1 skill point for all allies. So this will actually allow you to skill spam a bit more frequently with either Hyacine, Remembrance Trailblazer, and so on. So this will be really good in the case of getting more charge for Mem and being able to try to strategically time when you get advanced forward by Mem, so that Evernight is able to get more and more Memoria before Evey actually explodes. So that's a powerful thing that Remembrance Trailblazer can offer for Evernight. Plus, of course, you have the true damage buff for Mem's support, and you also get 10% crit rate. So in Evernight's case, she is going to be able to get 35% crit rate for free through one of her traces, which if you now have the 10% from Remembrance Trailblazer's E1, this will now result in you being able to only need 55% crit rate outside of battle in order to have 100% within battle. The 35% from her trace, and then the 10% from Remembrance Trailblazer. So I would highly recommend using Remembrance Trailblazer alongside Evernight, especially if you do decide to go the route of Hypercarry. And another thing about Evernight is that she also has a very high energy cost of 240. So because of that, you're going to be able to nicely take advantage of the true damage buff that Mem's support would provide. As for the other allies on the team, so let's say we're taking a look at Tribby. Tribby, there's alternative characters you can put in that slot, which I'll show in a moment here. But what Tribby is able to provide is, let's say you have Dance 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 equipped, you can now advance for the team. Tribby's skill is going to be able to provide Alt-type Res Pen for the team. Tribby's ultimate is going to be able to provide a vulnerability debuff onto enemies, which Evernight can take advantage of this, and also the vulnerability debuff from her own kits whenever you are in the Darkest Riddle state. So that is very nice to take advantage of to further amplify Evernight's damage potential. And overall, Tribby will be a nice option. And when it comes to the sustain, once again, Hyacine, Gallagher, Luocha, that'll basically remain pretty consistent throughout all of these teams we're going to discuss. But let's say you don't want to use Tribby. Let's say that you want to use Tribby on your other team. No problem there. We have Silverwolf. I actually recently showcased this. I believe it's actually just my last video I put out. I replaced Tribby with Silverwolf. I was still able to get a very nice clear with this team as well. What Silverwolf is going to be able to provide is she's going to be able to implant the ice weakness onto enemies. she will be able to reduce all enemies' defenses with her ultimate, which for a character like Evernight, who is going to be able to attack all enemies, she can nicely take advantage of this defense reduction to further amplify her damage output. Silverwolf is also going to inflict other debuffs onto enemies as well when it comes to further reducing their defenses. She's going to be able to reduce their resistances as well. So Silverwolf can be a very nice option alongside Evernight, especially if you once again want to use Tribby on your other team, Memory of Chaos, Pure Fiction, APOC. So having a free Tribby for your other team could be pretty good for trying to aim for those lower cycle clears, or even just trying to aim for a very nice score in Pure Fiction or APOC, whatever it may be. You can also consider Cypher. She can be an option. Cypher is going to be able to record the damage that the team deals onto enemies, which she can nicely take advantage of her ultimate. Once she has a nice amount of damage recorded, she can use her ultimate and she can assist with finishing off an enemy you're facing. Also, just by her being on the field, she'll be able to inflict enemies with a 40% vulnerability debuff. So once again, in the case of Evernight, she's going to be able to nicely take advantage of this to further increase her damage output. So Cypher can also be a nice option. One thing to note though regarding Cypher is that if you are using Remembrance Trailblazer, unfortunately Cypher does not record true damage. So that is something to keep in mind of if you do decide to use Cypher. Now, if you want to go more budget friendly, I have showcased this as well, where I used Evernight, Remembrance Trailblazer, Pela, and Gallagher. Now, for this particular team, I did have some issues trying to sustain just because of how hard enemies hit in Memory of Chaos nowadays. So this team was a little bit more difficult, and of course the performance was not as impressive as a more premium team, but the team was still able to get a 3-cycle clear, which I would say is decent. Pela is going to be able to reduce all enemies' defenses with her ultimate, which is great, and if you have her at E4, she will also be able to reduce an enemy's ice resistance, which is great for Evernight, as Evernight is an ice character herself. So she can nicely take advantage of this in order to deal more damage onto enemies. Another option can be Ruan Mei. Ruan Mei is going to be able to provide damage buffs, speed buffs, old type res pen, and so on. So Ruan Mei could be a pretty nice option as well to consider. And for some alternative characters, so let's say you are maybe considering Evernight and Aglaya. I have been getting a lot of questions regarding this one. I should have a showcase going up pretty soon, and it was more so a fun team more than anything. The only thing I noticed that was a primary issue with this team is that if you don't have Huohua on the team, so let's say you have Hyacine instead, then you definitely can encounter some energy issues for Aglaya herself. And while you may have Sunday still on the team, I was still encountering energy issues without an additional source from anywhere else, since I decided to try Aglaya, Sunday, Evernight, and Hyacine. Hyacine is essentially supporting the whole team, but also providing very nice benefits for Evernight herself. And in the case of Sunday, he is primarily assisting Aglaya. There might be other supports to mess around with here and there, which this team was still able to get around a 2-cycle to 3-cycle clear. But I will say, for how many premium characters are on the team, and then also the investment when it comes to the light cones or the relics, I do think it was a bit of an expensive team for the results that it got. Regardless though, it was still a pretty fun team overall, so I'm mainly just going to show it off for fun. Of course, it is not going to be a best in slot team, since Aglaya would prefer her normal hyper carry team. In the case of Evernight, I would say she definitely prefers to be alongside either Castorice or using hyper carry Evernight with characters like Remembrance Trailblazer, Hyacine. If you don't have Hyacine, then once again, Gallagher, Luocha. For your other supports, having Tribby, Silverwolf, and so on. So I more so would recommend those teams, but regardless, I like showing off fun teams from time to time, so I will still be showcasing it and just letting you guys see it for yourselves. And I would say that is all for today's video, and if you did enjoy today's video, make sure to subscribe to see more content from me, leave a like to support the video, and I hope to see you all next time. Peace.